The Rundown, Part 1, A Farlost Story by John Miro.
Twilight fell upon the darkening road. I found myself again alone. Street lights went out by one, by two, by three. Now reveled in the shadows that had grown. Yes, I reveled in the darkness I had known.
Farlost, Spintop Station, 3 weeks ago. Spintop Station collected and reflected Farlost's dull red sun like the sputtering embers of a dying fire, glowing brighter as it clung to life, then spearing the concentrated glare back into the faces of the dozens of ships floating around her, and lighting the backsides of ships under thrust heading back in system. The next stop, further out system, was the thick mass of the winter belt, its dense ring of off-gassing asteroids creating a foggy curtain, almost as bright, but blurring the sunlight and hiding the deeds and destinations of the ships heading into it. One nondescript little ship had been waiting 3 days for a berth on crowded little Spintop. The 4 quiet men aboard her spoke little, afraid, even here, to offer dissenting opinions, but that natural caution didn't really matter here. All agreed Spintop was a thieves' haven, profiting from the business of pirates, hunted men, and rebels, as much as from the restocking of armed convoys which started their journey through the winter belt here. Less than a day aboard, and they found who they were looking for, in a dirty little bar without a name, only known by its room number. Grav C-17 on the lowest rung of the rotating wheel that enabled gravity on the patchwork old station. No artificial gravity here. The air was barely breathable, muttered one of their number as the elevator opened and the team made their way out through the corridor to the drinking establishment. A manta flew directly across their path towards their elevator car, a few of its eyes trying hard to focus on where it was going, the rest rolled back in its head. Inside Grav C-17, a mostly human crowd was working its way quickly toward inebriation and organ failure. The place reeked more like the insides of the barflies slouching in the chairs or braying laughter around the tables than it did the contents of the copious bottles and glasses it sold. And what they were pouring would sanitize a dirty reactor, the leader thought, as he jerked his stubbled chin at a nearly empty table in the corner. He beckoned at the bartender as his men picked up 2 undersized tumblers and tossed the aliens away from the table. They rolled away yelping, chirping, and bouncing against tentacles and legs and then bounced off the walls, looking just as the leader imagined their namesake tumbleweeds might tumbling through the deserts of Earth. The men each ordered 2 drinks apiece to appear just as eager to forget their shitty little lives as the rest of the establishment. Their implant nulled the effects, but not the taste, nor the effects of the alcohol on their guts. None of the men would say it, but their team leader knew they were all keyed up enough without the joy juice burning their insides. One of them tugged at the rough collar of his old, patched flight suit. The leader sympathized. He too missed the clean and crisp fabric of his uniform, the polished sun medallion gleaming on his chest. But the system guard didn't advertise its presence on Spintop, even when it held its nose and did business with the filth that ran the place. A big man, a very big man, walked through the door. He was easily over 6.5 feet tall, close to 300 pounds, mostly muscle, some fat. He was flanked by 4 more muscular, hard-looking men. He screamed for drink and loudly offered the warmth of his lap and wallet to only the prettiest girls if they were ready to earn it. All 4 men's eyes locked on, then away. They waited for the drink and the women to get their grips, for the hard-looking men enjoying them to lose their focus. 2 hours later, one of the hard-looking associates of the very big man had left with one of the prettiest of the girls, and another was face down on the table. The men exchanged looks. Then they exchanged pieces of weapons, disassembled and so far invisible to Spintop Station sensors. Electrocharges on knives were switched on. Two of the men crossed slowly back to the door. Two of the men walked towards their target's table, shoving each other and laughing. The leader shoved his partner as they approached the big man's table. He laughed one last time, pretending the motion set him off balance. He feigned a drunken stagger into the last man to wear a hard look, and hammered him in the face with his elbow. The guy went out like a light. The younger agent pulled his assembled pistol out and shot the second man in the knee, sending him tumbling backwards out of his chair. When the fourth of their target's escorts blearily raised his head from the table, the leader slammed it back down hard enough to crack the plastic tabletop. Silence descended in the bar. "System guard agents!" One of the two men across the room at the now locked door screamed. "Remain in your seats," screamed the other, "and you will not be harmed." The big man's eyes bulged. He reached for a weapon, but the woman between his legs still had her head in his lap, and her hands on his hips had blocked his draw. She screamed as he tried to push her out of his way. The leader watched his partner press the flat of his blade against the man's face, and he jerked hard. He slumped over his lady friend. The leader smirked, hoping the electroblade's charge had passed through the man to his play partner. It would serve him right if she'd gotten the shock and her jaws had locked on a sensitive part of his anatomy. The leader threw a capsule into the air where it exploded into a sphere of light. Around the room, disoriented, drunken beings screamed, covered their eyes or other light-sensing organs. The leader turned slowly, meeting every eye as they recovered. He stood straighter, sneering at the ugliness of the now bright room and the now revealed patrons, and tugged at his filthy flight suit. He was happy to show them who he really was. "This is a priority retrieval by order of the System Guard High Command." He turned to face the target. "Roland Byrd, you have been found guilty of piracy and murder." The squad had all seen the vids. They'd all made themselves watch Roland's ship fire on the Kesh Shipworks CEO's private yacht. Watched Roland and his accomplices push the Manta and human crew out of the airlocks. Watched Roland himself torture the insectoid Skanen CEO's children in front of him, tearing exoskeleton off, slicing eye stalks off while they cried. Watched Roland thank the CEO before he pushed them into the airlock with his family and spaced them as well. Roland's eyes were already focusing, shaking off the effects of the shock blade. Impressive, the squad leader thought. He smashed the barrel of his pistol across the monster's face, sending him back over the chair and onto the floor. "You system guard think you can," said the bartender from behind the leader. His words were cut off by the boom of his squad mate's own pistol and the sound of breaking glass behind the bar. The leader looked around. The bartender was on the floor behind the bar, what was left of him, other than a spray of steaming blood on the racked mirror behind the bottles. More barflies were grunting, half rising from his chair. "Murderers! You system guard is the real killers!" Dozens of similar cries came from around the room. The leader nodded to his partner and the men at the door, raising the pistol in his hand. He'd expected this. They had rounds enough for everyone in the room. The leader's own pistol remained sighted on Roland, just now getting to his knees. His lips tightened, remembering the orders. No killing in the dark. Bring Roland Byrd in. Public trial, public execution. Good for morale and obedience. Fine. He trained the pistol on Roland's lady friend. Perhaps a nice, messy example would save his men some wear and tear. All around the room, people jumped from their seats. The cries in the room changed from anger to pleas for mercy, and the leader smiled. Mercy. He hoped the animals would attack. Euthanasia was the best medicine against creatures like these. "You all can save your ammo." A deep, booming voice, a lazy, confident drawl. The leader turned and saw another man unfold himself from a chair. He knew he wouldn't be referring to Roland Byrd as Big Man ever again. The leader's eyes widened as he took in the 7-foot-tall human's fuzzy brown dreadlocks and purple-hued skin. Bayman. What the hell was he doing here? The leader thought, fighting hard not to let his surprise show on his face. The pleading voices fell silent. Every sentient now stood. Every manta floated higher. Some of the tumbleweeds rolled in their cages, slapping the ground with eager, angry tentacles. A pair of insectoid Skanen boozers' oversized claws started clacking, their eye stalks wriggling. Shit. The leader fought down his sudden panic. The entire crowd had united behind Bayman. He'd never expected this. His men might, he thought, be able to repel a unified assault. They might even be able to take Bayman 4-on-1 and armed, but he doubted that. Scratch that. He knew better than to even try. "Bird's already in custody, bounty hunter," he said. "There's no money for you to earn in this." Bayman laughed. Instantly, the once terrified crowd laughed, too, confident in the legendary Bayman's ability to protect them. Fools. The leader bet Bayman would slaughter them all just as surely as any guardsman, but he wouldn't do it for orders or for duty, nor for justice, just for coin. "This ain't no jail, guardsman." He looked at the crowd, pumped his fist. "This look like a jail." The crowd roared its bloodlust, and the leader saw his men tensing, white-knuckling their weapons. "Bayman," Roland shouted from the ground. 50,000 Lou. Martel or Airy. Pick your flavor." The leader tapped the side of his pistol, held it sideways so Roland could see the weapon setting itself to full auto release. Roland went silent, but glared, not fully cowed by the display. Inside, the leader was panicking more now. If he brought Roland in dead, it could mean years of more field work before securing promotion. He reminded himself that was preferable to getting killed. "Prepare to sweep," he shouted, and he heard the hum of 3 more pistols switching. Bayman shook his head, his dreads lazily swinging as he approached the leader. "Can't let you do that, man. I like drinking here." The leader's eyes narrowed. Was this a negotiation? Or did Bayman actually care what happened to the sentients in this shithole? No, this was about money. It was always about money with private hunters. The leader sighed and dialed his weapon down. "Fine. 50,000 Lou. Martel." Bayman laughed again, and suddenly there was a thin dagger in his hands. He picked his teeth with it. "You the guard, ain't you? Gotta make a big stink when a rich man get killed. That make it 300,000 Lou." He shrugged. "I'll take it in Martel, sure." The dagger was balanced on the tip of one finger now, halfway between Bayman and the team leader. It was a threat. Everyone in the room knew it. They might have had enough invested in Roland to make a feeble stand against his team, but now that Bayman was involved, they all hoped they could have guard blood. The leader snarled at Bayman. 200, he agreed curtly. Great. That would definitely cost him another year of shitty undercover work, he thought. Bayman cocked one eyebrow and leaned in. The leader's snarl faded as the dagger, still effortlessly balanced on the point of one finger, came close to his eye, but he did not flinch. He was a system guard soldier, by God. Bayman cast an eye lazily over the leader's face, pursing his lips. "All right, 200 then, boss man. And the house drinks free, all night long." Grav C-17 was cheering, and cheering Bayman's name, when he pushed Roland ahead of him toward the elevators. Roland went where he was pushed, without a restraint field, manacles, or so much as a peep. Not because of the guardsmen. Everyone in his line of work knew what happened if you ran from Bayman. Roland was stupid, though, and had spent a lifetime thinking he was the scariest person in the room. He turned on the leader as soon as the elevator doors closed, and Bayman leaned in a corner, eyes closed and arms folded across his chest, ignoring the show. Spittle flew out of Roland's mouth as he leaned in close. "The system guard just takes and kills whoever stands in their way. Why shouldn't we kill back? Who's going to stop us all, you?" The leader was deciding whether to hit Roland or cut him, when from the corner Bayman snorted. "Yeah, they killers, but they pay good." One eye opening, Bayman nodded to Roland. "No thing personal, Bert. Just the bounty." A second eye opened. The leader watched each of his men back up a step. "No, that's a lie," Bayman whispered, and too fast for the leader to register it happening, Bayman was in the center of the large cargo elevator, rage and fury pouring out for just a millisecond before he covered it up, and he slapped Roland lightly on the cheek twice. "Next time," Bayman whispered, in close, so the leader barely heard him, "don't hurt kids, even bug kids." The elevator opened, and Bayman hauled Roland Byrd out along the floor by the collar. The team leader stared out after him, but Bayman turned and held up a hand. "I got business in Casti. You can pick 'em up there." Roland Byrd smiled big. "I always liked Casti." The youngest guardsman on the squad blurted, "You're going to leave us here?" Bayman stared at the kid and spat a stream of something brown. It flew straight and far and dribbled all down the kid's shirt and pants. The kid froze, and the leader felt bad for him. Nobody treated a system guardsman like this. That's what the kid would be thinking. The kid was learning a lesson. Bayman wasn't nobody. "Get me paid before I'm orbiting Casti, or Bert here maybe finds enough loot to fly free." Then Bayman turned and sauntered away down the corridor, his 7-foot height crouching, and Byrd, as violent a monster as the team had ever hunted, just plain let himself be dragged along the ground behind. "Sir," the kid said, turning to his superior officer, "are we just going to—" "Yeah, kid," the leader said, pulling his gun from his shoulder holster and gesturing for his team to haul ass back to their ship. Another elevator dinged down the hall. "We are." They ran for their ship, as heavy feet pounded out of the elevator and bloodthirsty cries echoed down the corridor after them. You have been listening to The Rundown, a Farlost story, written by John Miro. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Opening music, Everything Is Not What It Appears, kindly provided by Nate Maingard at natemaingard.com. Closing music, Full On by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Thank you for listening.